believed that public life and politics afforded, a bully pulpit, for action and to change people's lives. And so what the awards, whether it be the Institute of Politics or the Profiles in Courage Award, try to reaffirm that sense of action and activity and recognize the practitioners. And that's what he was about. My father was a very vital presence in public life. He inspired a lot of people to get involved in government and in politics when they may not have been so inclined in the years before. And so that's the thing. I think that's perhaps his most resonant legacy, and I think that's the things that we try to emphasize in these awards.
We're talking to John Kennedy Jr. about his father's legacy. John, there was a poll done in, I think it was Newsweek magazine about 10 years or so ago, which found that your father was America's favorite president. The public ranked him ahead of Roosevelt, ahead of Lincoln, and even ahead of George Washington, the namesake for your magazine. Why is it that your father continues to have such extraordinary impact on the American public?
Well, as far as your polls, I'm sure the Lincoln aficionados weren't around to be polled, whereas people who grew up in the 1960s are. But the larger question is why does he continue to, resonate in American public life? And I think that there are, a variety of reasons. Perhaps the most significant one is that he inspired a lot of hope and created a sense of possibility, and then the possibility was cut short and never realized. So it enables people to project a lot of what they hope for America and for their own lives onto his memory, and it evokes something of their own lives and how they felt at a certain time in their life, and through him connect with that. And that's important for people, I think.
Yeah. When you think about his legacy, when you think of all the things he accomplished, what is there one thing that stands out in your mind as being most significant?
Well, there were certainly a number of practical accomplishments throughout his administration, but at the same time it was, as you know, he had a very narrow margin of victory and was constrained legislatively from doing things, and I think had he been elected to a second term, he would have been able to do a lot more. But I think the sort of intangible is that he made people feel that public life and politics was something worth going into, and he did. It's sort of a cliche now, but he did inspire a generation of people to get involved in political life. That's the thing that people say to me so often, whether on the street or people I meet who are in office, who say, listen, I just want you to know that, I got involved in politics because of your father or through Bobby. So I think that's up there. I don't know, whether it's the most, but that's certainly one of them.
So beyond sort of the legislation and particular things he did, it was more this sort of the sense of expectation he created, the sense of hope.
Yeah, I think it's one of them.
How does his legacy impact you?
Well, I mean, legacies are, he's my father, and I think legacies are the kinds of thing that you don't really speak about when you're talking about your parents. I grew up, obviously, in a family that valued public service, and and he provided a very compelling example. So, and we all, but at the same time, I think it's important that I think he would have wanted both his children to live their own lives and not try to mimic, for the sake of public expectation, his life. I have interests and I have sentiments and I have, that were passed on from him that I try to integrate into my life, and but at the same time try to do it, try to live a life that's reflective of my life and not somebody else's.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you've obviously chosen to do is go into journalism, and you founded this wonderful, very successful magazine, George.
Thank you.
And one of the things you do every month is interview famous people, public figures, and ask them penetrating questions to try to get
You
beneath the
think
surface.
they're penetrating? I hope. I'm not so sure.
So let me ask you this: if you were interviewing John Kennedy about his father's legacy, what question would you ask him?
Probably the one that you just asked me. I mean, what I basically try to do in the magazine is just to afford people a personal entry into people in political life. And I think what happens a lot of the time, and this is certainly my own experience, is the people who are in public life are really never projected at being the human, multidimensional, complex, self-sacrificing people that they often are. And there's a lot of, quite rightly so, a lot of negative press about people in public life and a lot of cynicism, and we try to be skeptical but not cynical. And I think an interview affords people a way of sort of engaging these figures, and I think for the people themselves, perhaps they feel that, given my own experience, that maybe they'll be treated fairly, maybe not, but I think that there is a comfort level that I have somewhat some understanding of what they go through and what challenges face them, and that maybe that will be reflected in the interview.
How do you see your father's legacy continuing into the future?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure it will change that much. I think the interesting thing is going to be that as people who knew him as a contemporary get older, and most of the people now 90% or something of the people who come to the Kennedy Library were not around when my father was around. Mm-hmm. We talked about school children. So it's the trick is how do you make his experience and his administration and the values that he tried to bring to public life relevant to their own experience. And I'm not sure how that will play out. I think certainly, shows like this and education in schools and things that we try to put in, George Magazine or other magazines, historically oriented pieces, we'll try to do that. But, he was always a very telegenic candidate and a president, and TV will help, and so I think that's going to help a lot to bring him to life to younger generations.
And it seems the challenge for the younger generation is to inspire them to build a connection with politics, which is something your father did so well, and I guess, as you said, is a key part of his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of positive reinforcement to do that now, and I think that's too bad, because I think there are a lot of people who may stay out of public life for that reason. But there are great rewards, and when people are ready for it, and they really want to go into public life, it's still the bully pulpit that it always was, and it still is a way of really engaging the great issues of the day. I'm not worried that there'll be a lack of people who will take on that sacrifice. Boy, I've just set up myself for the next great question, right?
Let me think. What will I ask you now? So John,
yeah.
You've just spoken about the wonders of public service and inspiring the next generation to go into politics. You think of anyone who anyone
my
in mind?
sister? Is that what you
Yeah.
You asked me about my sister?
Yeah. How about Caroline? Did you see her running? For public
No,
office?
I mean, in serious, it's certainly whether I'm going to go into public service is a question I get asked a lot. And for right now, I think that there are a lot of ways to participate in the public discourse and to engage people. And for me, right now, this magazine is a very important way. And in almost less than 2 years, we've flouted a lot of the conventional wisdom, which says that people aren't interested in politics, and we've engaged a considerable audience in politics and in the issues of the day, and that's very satisfying. And there are some members of my family that have gone directly into public life. For me, that's a very loaded situation. It's not a situation that one should step into casually. I think you better be ready for it, both personally, your family. It's like going into the military. Once you go, there's no going back. So I'm enjoying accumulating the experiences that I am, and I've never really been a sort of a long horizon type of person. So my horizon right now is George Magazine, and it's working well.
That's great, John. Thanks. It's been great having you here.
Thank you, Steve.